Hello, and welcome back to the World of Wysteria. This afternoon, I will be reading Chapter 7. This chapter will likely be presented in two separate videos, Part 1 and Part 2. Wysteria. Chapter 7. The following night, Will made his way to a scenic spot he and Emily had discovered the day before on their walk through the garden. Taking a seat on a wooden bench beside a rustic trellis covered with fragrant pink roses, he closed his eyes and drew in the sweet aroma. Funny, he thought, they smell pink. Then came a different scent. Lilacs, he murmured. Looking over his shoulder, he saw Emily walking across the grass toward him. "Good morning," he said. Emily stopped in her tracks. "Darn, I was trying to sneak up on you," she said, pouting. "You must have good ears. I thought I was being pretty quiet." "Actually," he said, "I smelled you coming." "Why, that's a nice thing to say," she replied, ambling over to where he sat. "Don't worry," said Will, laughing. "It's a good smell, one of my favorites. I guess I haven't told you about that." "About what?" Emily asked, sitting down beside him. "I smell lilacs before you appear," he explained. "That's strange," she said. "I'm not wearing perfume." "I don't smell it now, and I never smell it on you," he told her. "The fragrance is just in the air, or in my head, when you first arrive here." She looked into the distance and thought for a moment. "That's interesting," she said. "I've never heard of that phenomenon before." Emily then faced him with a bright smile. Can we go up to the town today?" she asked. "Sure," he replied. "Is there something in particular you want to do?" "Yes, there is." "And what might that be?" he asked her. "You'll see," she said, springing up from her seat and motioning for him to follow. With Emily in the lead, they hurried through the garden and up the stairs to the exit. "What are these buildings here?" she asked, as they stepped into the street and began walking toward the square. "I'm not sure," said Will. "I've never investigated them." "Do you think they're houses or shops?" she asked. "I realize you haven't gone inside them yet, but what do you think they are?" "Residences, I suppose, rather than stores," he replied. "Although they might be public buildings, offices of some kind." "Offices? For whom?" "That's a good question," he said, laughing. "I guess I assumed there should be offices here because, well, all towns have them." Habitual thinking. "You can let go of that here, Will," she told him. "You don't need to be limited by old patterns." As they approached the entrance to the plaza, Emily noticed the bronze plaque above the central arch. "Wysteria," she said. "So that's the name of your world?" "Apparently," he replied. "It fits the place," she remarked approvingly. "So, what are you looking for?" he asked, as they continued forward into the square. "Or is that a surprise?" "I'd like it to be a surprise, but I'm going to need your help, I think." Okay, mystery girl, he said. Just let me know what you want me to do. Emily took a quick look around. What are those buildings over there, she asked, pointing to the colored doors on the opposite side of the plaza. I know there's a tavern behind the green door, he said. I was in there once. Do you want to see? As soon as Will asked this, he wished he hadn't. For what if Lily were there? How would she react if he came into her establishment with another woman? And what would he do if Lily tried to kiss him again? Maybe another time, she answered. What about the other doors? I have no idea, he said, relieved that there would be no potentially awkward visit today. Shops of some kind, I guess. I wonder, she said, staring at the doors one by one. There are more people here today, he observed, glancing around the plaza. Why do you suppose that is? I wouldn't know, Will, she replied absently, her attention still focused on the doors. It's not my world. I wonder where they're going, he said, and where they're coming from. Where were they before we got here? What do you mean, she asked, now turning to face him. You said that this world stays here when I leave, he explained. So I assume these people stay here too. Am I right? Yes, she said. They remain here. Then, what do they do when I'm gone? Will asked. Do they walk around the square and go in and out of doors? Or do they get up in the morning and have breakfast with their families? Then, later, after I leave, do they return home and eat dinner before going to sleep? Another interesting question, she said. Like everything in your world, how these people behave depends on you and the depth of your experience. I'm not sure I understand, he said. Your experience of things is more than just what you see with your eyes or hear with your ears, Emily told him. For example, when you look at something, a tree or a building or a person, your eyes only see the front of it, but you experience it as having a backside too, don't you? Well, I suppose I know that it has a backside. At least I assume it does, he answered. Yes, but it's more than that, she asserted. It's more than just an intellectual understanding. It's how you experience the object, the moment you see it. That other side, even though it's hidden from your eyes, is still part of the total content of your experience when you perceive it. This isn't just true of your experiences here in the dream universe. It's true in any universe. It's how the mind works. Your senses give you information about something, but the total experience is based on more than that. You mean things such as my assumptions and expectations, he responded. Exactly, she said. If you saw a basketball sitting on the ground, you would actually only see half of it, the half that faces you. But you don't experience half a ball. You experience it as being a complete sphere. Now, you might be wrong. Maybe it is just half a ball. If you went to pick it up and found it was only half a ball, your experience of it would suddenly change. And you'd be surprised, right? I suppose I would, he answered. The fact that it would surprise you proves that you'd previously experienced it as being a complete spherical ball. Do you see how this relates to your question about the people in your world? She asked him. In this world, your expectations create things. So, what do you expect the people to do when you're not here? What kind of lives do you expect them to live? Lives, he thought. Okay, said Emily, let's go shopping. Will had momentarily forgotten about Emily's secret agenda. What do you want to shop for? He asked her. I want to look for some clothes. For both of us, she said. Clothes? Yes. I thought it would be fun to play dress-up today, she told him. That's my surprise. Well, I am surprised, he replied. And it does sound like fun. Great, she said, clearly pleased that he was willing to play along. Is there a clothing store here? Ah, so that's what you've been looking for. I really have no idea, he said. It never occurred to me to create a place like that. Maybe you have, though, even if you didn't consciously intend to. If there were one here, where would you expect it to be? She asked. Nothing came to mind. But then, Will recalled that during their first conversation, Emily had mentioned buying new clothes so that she could fit in with his world. He also remembered wondering if there were such a shop here. Perhaps her remark had planted a seed in his subconscious. It's just a guess, he said. But let's try the middle door. I knew it, she said, bouncing on the balls of her feet. Emily took his hand and began leading him toward the entrance. It was the first time they had touched. Will felt the warmth from her hand move up his arm and spread through his body. Now, don't get your hopes up, he warned her, as she pulled him across the square. If we can't find a clothing shop today, I'm sure I can have one here tomorrow. Okay, she said, but I have a feeling it's there. Will had a feeling she was right. When they were a few steps from the building, Emily let go of his hand and ran to the window. She put her face close to the glass and peered inside, then spun around and looked at him with a broad smile. Yay, she cried. You did it. She stepped over to the door, stood to one side, and pulled it open. See, she announced. Emily entered the establishment and instantly scurried down one of the aisles between the racks of dresses. Will followed her inside and stood near the door, taking a slow, thorough look around the premises. There was a wide variety of clothing here, representing styles from different periods, like the garb worn by the populace in Wysteria. Even though all of this was new, it looked bright, solid, and well-focused. After making a few sensory passes across the interior of the shop, Will felt satisfied that it was now stable. Will, come look, he heard Emily call from somewhere within the store. He walked to the back of the room, where he found her standing in front of a long mirror, examining a dress that she held in front of her. She turned and faced him, holding the garment close against her body. It was light blue, somewhat Victorian in style, embellished with white lace and dark blue embroidery. The bodice of the dress was long-sleeved, close-fitting, and had a high collar. The skirt was ankle-length and full, with deep folds. "Do you like it?" she asked, smiling, clearly happy with her find. "Yes," he answered. "It would look lovely on you." "Okay, let me try it on." Emily took the dress to the back corner of the shop and stepped behind a folding screen. "You need to look for something too," she reminded him. Will walked over to a rack of men's clothes and pulled out a black jacket. It was long, almost knee-length, and reminded him of a Western frock coat, though more elegant. He was examining it when Emily approached him from behind. "That's perfect," she said. Will turned around and saw that Emily was now wearing the dress. "Wow," he said. "It's beautiful. You look like you stepped right out of a Monet painting." "I love it," she said, turning in a slow circle so that Will could see it from all sides. She then lifted the skirt slightly and extended one leg in front of her. "And aren't these the cutest shoes?" "Now I need to find a hat," she said, before hurrying off to the other side of the store. Will picked out a white shirt and black trousers, as well as a pair of tall black riding boots, then took them, with the jacket, to the changing area, where he tried them on. He was standing in front of the mirror, scrutinizing his attire, when Emily appeared again, now wearing a white hat with a wide brim and a light blue ribbon circling the crown. "Oh, Will," she exclaimed, "you look so handsome." "Thank you," he said, turning to look in the mirror again. "It's strange, seeing myself dressed like this, but I like the outfit." "It's very dashing," she remarked, looking at him admiringly. "Now, shall we go for a walk?" And we will return shortly with part 2.